Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Technocratic Podcast. Today, our guest is Alberto Silveira. Alberto is a previous colleague of mine and leader on the product and technology side. He's been VP of Engineering and CTO across a number of different verticals, including GovTech, EdTech, and many more. He's also written a book called Building and Managing High-Performance Distributed Teams, Navigating the Future of Work. Check it out on Amazon. I met Alberto when we were both at an EdTech company. I was always really impressed by his focus on engineering team culture, metrics, productivity, and things like that. I'm super glad that he's been able to join us today, and we're going to be talking about a bunch of these topics. So welcome to the podcast, Alberto. It's great to have you.
Thank you very much, Bobby. Pleasure. Thank you for having me here.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for joining. And as always, I'm going to turn it over to get us started to my trusty sidekick, Mishka McCowan. He'll dig into some fun get to know you questions, Alberto, to get us warmed up. Take it away, Mishka.
All right. So the questions are very easy. We're going to start with some this or that questions. So just pick the one that you like. There is no wrong answer. We're going to start with a classic one first. Tabs or spaces?
Tabs?
Yeah, tabs. Absolutely.
All right. When it comes to food, surf or turf?
Surf.
Yeah, both, Mishka.
Both. Food is good.
As long as the food is good, that's what counts.
Right.
All right. Movies, Jaws or Sharknado?
Sharknado.
Man, Alberto, I got to go with Jaws, Mishka. What about you?
Depends on my mood. Jaws I saw in the movie theater when I was a kid. It took me away from the beach for 2 years afterwards. It was horrible.
Exactly.
All right. Got two long form questions for you. Just asking about you. What was your first computer?
The first computer that I had was actually, I grew up in Brazil, so it was very expensive. So my sister actually helped buying a Pentium 133 megahertz with Windows 95.
That's great.
And that was in 1999.
Nice.
Was the year that I started computer science. So yeah.
Nice.
Alberto, you're just a young kid compared to the both of us over here. my computer was an IBM AT, which I swear must have been like 12 megahertz or something like that. It was like a 8386. You guys remember those machines?
Yeah. A friend of mine, he had a 286.
Oh,
so
man.
we would spend the entire weekend with that thing. And there was no internet at the time. I think that was probably 1992, and that was a lot of fun. But that was like my contact with, but I only could afford one, my family, like in 1999.
Yeah. So in Brazil, I guess you had to import it at that time or something like that. It must have been hard to get.
To today's day, everything, most of like the technology comes through Paraguay, like the neighbor country, and you have to cross the border and taxes and all that kind of stuff. If you buy in Brazil, till today's days, it's like if you buy a Mac that here costs like $3,000, $4,000, it's a price of a Honda Civic there.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, like similar in India, actually. If you buy it locally, it's insanely expensive. Do you guys remember? Sorry, Mishka, to go on a tangent here. Do you guys remember messing with 640K of memory that you had at that time on machines and trying to constantly optimize it to play games and stuff like that? Did you ever do that?
That's actually was one of my first. So whatever I did, computer wouldn't boot anymore. Mm-hmm. So my dad actually borrowed me $70 to actually go take the computer to the shop and fix.
Yes.
And then it fixed. 70, less than 24 hours later, or 48 hours later, I broke it again. I said, I can't ask my dad again. So I have to figure this out. So that's when I started learning and fixing the computers and and being the software. And then I fixed. And then I start fixing like the friend's computer. And then I start assembling computers. I would sell. And then all the memory game, motherboard, and later in the game, later in time, it came like the motherboards that came with everything. But
Yeah.
but back the time, you have to build all the parts.
Right.
So that was
Yeah.
that was like a learning as you do it.
Yes, exactly right. Those are the fun days, man. Did you
Yeah.
ever do you ever build machines now? Build a PC?
Build the physical parts.
Yeah, like have
Yeah.
you built a PC recently? I built one 3 years
Recently,
ago.
no. It's last time. It's been like
No time.
25 years ago.
Yeah,
More.
yeah. I tried to do it and it was so simple. There was no fun in it. And it just like took like an hour. And I was like, okay, it's all so easy now. It's like not the same fun as before.
Yeah, I think now it's all embedded on the boards, and you don't have
So
like to actually. I mean, I guess you can if you want, but it's not needed.
yeah, it's all like so plug and play now. Sorry, Mishka. I'm sure you had another question or two for Alberto.
No, this is good. I have one last question, and it's sort of related. What was the first real program that you wrote?
That was in Pascal, and it was a software for pizza place.
How did you get that job?
Through a professor in college. Actually, I remember talking with the professor, but because so there was like this pizza place near my place, and I remember that like back in the day, like putting the notes on the piece of paper, and so like, wow, we can create a system. So I think I offered the job, and then I asked like my professor, like, what do you think it's a good thing or not? And I charged 400 Brazilian reais at the time. I remember the numbers. I have a good memory. And I did it. I regret it because it took a lot longer than what I estimated. I learned like estimating projects very early in my career. But I think I was just going there and talking and observing and offering. And then I remember my professor, Alexander, his name, he completely supported and motivated me, because can you imagine writing that like in Pascal? The hardest part was actually getting the printer to work to actually print the receipts. Like character by character, like trying to move and that thing. Oh my goodness! But you could actually even buy you could split a pizza in 3 parts and choose 3 different flavors. And
That's
it
kind of
was
cool.
it worked. It worked.
Was that your first job?
Guys, that is equivalent to right now today as $60, $70.
Nice. Imagine those rates right now. That would be amazing. We could hire so many people. Alberto, was that your first job, first professional programming job?
It was the first that I got paid for. Like, I did many other like little things here and there, like, but that I remember getting paid as a programmer, as writing code. It was this in Pascal,
Right.
procedural language. That's what I knew at the time. I knew that, and I was learning small talk.
Ooh, small talk. Wasn't that one of the first object-oriented languages?
Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool.
Was common in Germany and a few other for academic purposes, but
I got it.
It was 100% OO.
Yeah, I wrote some program in Turbo Pascal and Fortran back in the day in school. Fortran 90 it was, or something like that, very procedural language. But then after this pizza program you wrote, what was the next big thing you did?
I ended up getting a job at a company called EDS, Electronic Data System. It was a company that actually separated from GM. And they went to Brazil. They went to college they wanted to actually get computer science folks. And I said, my dream, I'm going to work for like an American company and I'm done. That's like my career right there.
Right.
So there was only 10 spots for the whole college. We're like a big college, 25,000 students.
Wow.
Several, many students, and there's 10 spots that they would train. So I dedicated myself there, and I ended up getting one of like those spots.
Yeah.
And they trained me on. I learned PL1, COBOL,
Hmm.
and at that time I didn't speak English. So
Okay.
and but yeah, that's how where I start coding.
At EDS.
EDS, yeah.
Yeah. Their headquarters is right behind my house. Used to be right
Oh,
behind my
really?
childhood home. Yeah. I
Yeah, they
had a
became a HP at some point, like over a decade
yeah.
ago. Yeah,
How long was your career there?
3 years or so.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
I
then you
started
came
as an
to.
intern,
Hmm.
um, and then I remember this as it was like yesterday, and there was one person. So all these the interns like in a room doing training exercises, and then they start giving like some real code. Um, and time goes and we are actually working, and then there's a call with like an American uh, customer or part of the team member, I don't remember, and then one of like the guys came and said like, who speak English here?
Hmm.
And then like a friend of mine raised his hand and said, I do. I said,
Hmm.
what the hell is that? Like, oh, the English, okay, good. I don't. Damn it, he goes to the call, and he actually gets from an intern, he gets like a junior position,
Okay.
that was 3 times the money. He said, I need to learn this English thing. But it was college, and it was working 8 hours, then I had to commute, and then I had to like plus college. Said, what time I'm gonna learn English? I said, Saturday and Sunday.
Wow.
So I did that for a year, and then I said, okay, now I know. I didn't. So um, uh, it took a while, but
Yeah.
I said, I just said, like, you know what, it's going to be always broken. So what the heck? I would just say that I know, and I will figure out. And
Move forward.
back in the day, you would buy magazines with CDs. So
Mm.
I would listen the same CD over and over again to actually
Mm.
try to actually get like the listening skills.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, after that, I did like some other jobs, but and then I ended up at IBM, and
Right.
then I end up here in the US, New
Yeah.
York, and just start to change. But
Yeah.
summarize, but
You're.
something on those lines.
Yeah. I get it. I get it. Some of our listeners, many of our listeners, are sort of in that middle management layer, and they're, directors of engineering, maybe, or managers of engineering. I think all three of us went through these phases in our career. For you, how did you make the jump into leadership? VP of engineering, CTO. What was it that made it happen for you? Was it just like you were at the right time at the right place, or did you have to do something special? Did some special opportunity turn up? Like, how did you make that leap?
From my experience, there's no magic. There's really hard work. I I worked really hard, and I continue to do so. Um, and when I say hard, is I started, as I mentioned, like coding in COBOL and like procedural, and I realized that colleagues of mine would be working on Java back in the day with struts and like the beginning of web,
Yeah.
and they had like more excitement, and because it was a newer technology, and
Mm.
also the market was paying well. So I said, I need
Right.
to learn that technology. So before I became a lead, my point is I was like an IC and learning as much technology as I could, front end, back end, Microsoft. I coded in VB, I coded in Java,
Wow.
like
Mm.
I coded in mainframe, I coded on mobile.
Mm.
So throughout my career, I worked in many different companies, and literally, I said I love technology, and I have to be technology agnostic.
Mm.
So I have no preference. My preference is whatever technology is that's going to make the business to move forward, whatever gets the job done.
Yeah.
And then I think over the years, you are like I think I'm a very people oriented as well. And I think the combination of having the good technology, but also like the business, and then I end up I did an MBA when I was in New York. That was 2.5 years of my life that I said, next time I don't take courses more than 3 days. 2.5 years was a lot, after having kids, but I did it like to learn some more different areas of the business, financing, marketing, the product, and I think it like, to answer your question, Bobby, I think it happened naturally. I didn't say I want to be a CTO, I want to be a VP, or like.
Right.
I went all the way to the senior engineer. Then I became a lead engineer.
Right.
And then I really enjoy. I would put people together by just being myself. And by myself, I mean like, let's be as transparent as we can. Like, we will not be able to deliver this. Let's keep the quality of the product. Let's try to understand what the customer really wants. And then, got then the director, the senior director, the VP. So I went through all these steps until I became CTO. And every jump, you get scared. Can I do that job? Like,
right.
And then when you realize you were already doing it. So, but yeah,
that's
I think.
Cool.
That's
so yours was like a very gradual progression, and you did pretty much, it sounds like, every job. When you became sort of the first time you became the primary technical leader of a company, of an entire organization, what did that feel like, and what was the biggest challenge to that? When it's all on your shoulders for the first time, there's nobody else. Buck stops with Alberto. What was the biggest challenge of that first time you had that kind of role?
I think I was lucky in some way, because I was the VP of engineering, report to the CTO at the time. And he had a medical condition, and he had to step away for 3 months, 4 months. So I wasn't the CTO, but I was I was just handling that in the interim while he was out. What I didn't realize, that I was doing the job of a CTO without having the pressure or the title of having a CTO, of being a CTO.
Yeah, so, that happened pretty often. Yeah.
No, that's what I'm saying. I think I was lucky or blessed in that regard. And when that time ended, Jeremy, which is currently my CEO, again, he says, Alberto, like, how you like this? I said, well, it's fun. I'm doing this. I said, well, everyone in the team is really happy what the changes you're making, how you're doing. The morale of the team is good. The process you're putting. So do you want this? You want to keep doing this? I said, yeah, this is great. But I'm not sure if I'm right for being a CTO. He said, wow, you're acting as one for a while. Oh, really? Oh, is that it? So then, okay, let's continue doing it. Give him a raise. Let's get some the benefit from it, and then ever since I've been working as technology leader.
Yeah. And did you find like there was like one or two things that is the most fun for you as a CTO, as a leader? Like, there's so many things in a CTO's job they have to do, right? Was there something that you find even to this day, like, man, I really love doing this part of the job?
There are parts that I like more. There are parts that I like less. What I like the most is the ability to connect people and drive them to focus and get them to all move the boat to a to a direction.
Mm-hmm.
Being a technology guy myself, the technology is a tool, right? And if you don't know how to use the tool, it can hurt you. But if you know how to use the tool, it can really benefit you. And I think many companies or many leaders, they get lost either on the technology or like on the people side. And I think what I love the most is connecting technology and people towards a collective goal. It's a big puzzle to solve.
It is.
We have, I have like the engineering brain, and like I need to. I'm motivated to fixing things, to creating things, and
Right.
I think being a CTO it's doing that in a really large scale, because there's so many parts that you have to, so many gears that you have to make to work together, and that's a lot of fun. And every company I go is like, okay, how many parts do I have here? Like, what's working, what's not working, and analyzing that, and then that's where the process and people, it's the same old. And that's what I love about the being a technology leader. And I had situations in my career where I wanted to fix, I wanted to do it, but the leadership didn't want to do it. The leadership want to do something in a different way.
Right.
And I experienced that so many times, and that would frustrate me so much. I said, like, okay, so what do I need to do to avoid this kind of stuff? So
it's very frustrating.
Is to be at the top, and then I will make the decisions, and then they will make the decisions that I know that works.
Right. Isn't it a funny feeling the first time you realize the leadership doesn't want this thing over here fixed? You're sitting there trying to fix it. Then you realize leadership actually doesn't care about fixing it. And then you're like, oh my God, you have that first time early in the career, you have that realization. It's kind of mind blowing. What about, Alberto, your advice for, I've hired so many CTOs in my life. Some of them come from, 95% of them come from technical backgrounds. Some of them are really good with people, but a lot of them don't have, like, ever since I met you, you are a people person. You know how to interact with people. You know how to manage people. You know how to build good teams, create good culture. But a lot of CTOs, they come from a deep engineering background. How should they bridge that gap? How should they become good with people? Managing them, communicating with them, handling their problems. Because the higher you go, the more almost like a people job it becomes, right? You have 100 people, then 300, 500, like that. What is your advice for people who are more technical and need to learn how to, manage people better?
I try to get to know people by first name, last name, what you do, what you like, what you don't like. I invest a lot of time, and say that I use the word invest, not spend. I invest the time knowing the people on my teams. I try to be with them where they are. I don't like any special chair. I like to be on the floor. We are all in the same boat. And I talk with a lot of people on my team. And my goal is to talk with everyone. It takes time, but it's precious time, because what I get from there, from those conversations, is how I know Lara Croft can actually be doing this kind of work. I know that, Spider-Man can actually be on that other side. So I know how and where people should be positioned to be the work. And the way that people perceive that is like, he cares about my job. He really cares. And I listen a lot on those. I ask a few questions, and don't need to be like an hour conversation with everyone. And I make myself available all the time. I say, I'm just a Slack away. I'm a normal human being. Like, I'm on the same boat. So from like the team settings to the one-on-ones, if you're a leader and you're not spending most of your time talking to your teams, I think you're missing the opportunity to connect with them.
Mm.
And that's what I do. And I love doing that. So it's very energy consuming. They're like they're like days that are, oh my goodness. And my wife actually asked me like, how can you talk so much? Like how it's the whole day every day? I said, yep. And I think like my advice is like for any, it's not the technology that's gonna solve. It's the people that you have that's gonna actually make you. It's a combination, but if you have to actually weight it, like the people and processes and how they operate, giving the tools and the environment where where they can actually give the best version of themselves. That's what's going to make the organization, your team, yourself, and the organization successful.
Yeah, that's great advice, Alberto. How should, digging a little deeper, if you don't mind on this, when somebody doesn't have the skill naturally, and maybe they don't get energy out of like deep investments in time with people, how should they actually learn to do it? Or are those people just destined never to be that kind of leader? So in other words, like, is this a skill that can be learned? This getting to know people on your team? Because there's a lot of pretty successful CTOs that are kind of much more focused on, the business outcomes. They care just about the numbers. They're wondering, did you ship it or not? They don't spend time with the team. They don't get to know their last name. They don't do any of that stuff. What is your take on this? Is it something that just comes naturally and either you have it or you don't, or you can learn it?
I think we humans, we can learn whatever we want to learn. If you want, you can learn.
Right.
But I think it's a fair question to ask, like, do I really want this? And listen, there's many ways, many paths to achieve. I'm actually giving the one that I believe, and actually I'm confident that it works. Now, there's different ways of getting and becoming a technology leader, and as you said, like people will have different skill sets, and they will still be a CTO. There's different types of organizations, different type of culture. I like the art of efficiency, like lean. I hate waste. And I think that I grew up like that. Like this is like it's in my DNA. So for me, that is really, really, really important. And how do you do that is making sure that every single person that is in your boat, on your team, is being efficient and giving the best version of themselves. Now, if someone is a CTO, have like more business out, I think that's more work for the product team. I think that's more work for the CEO of the organization. I don't want to actually, you tell me where you want to go, I will build the team to get there. But I'm not the person that's going to give the vision. I have opinions. I have my business, I don't think that's the right direction. I can actually, 3 degrees to east or to west may make like a really big difference. But, I think depending on the company that you are, depending on the CEO, like, and we were talking earlier about if you're like in a private equity, if you're like in a venture capital, like in a public company, it will require different type of leadership. You just have to find the one that your skills fit better. There's room and jobs for everyone. For every type of leadership. What I was trying to convey is the type of leadership that I believe, that I like.
Yeah, that makes sense. You got to fit it into the correct context. That's a good point. You mentioned culture a little bit, and that was another strength I noticed about you. Most CTOs, we get this culture question, like, what's the best engineering culture to have? How do you know you have a good engineering culture? What kind of better outcomes does a good engineering culture, kind of cause? What do you even define as a good engineering culture? Can you talk a little bit about that? Because you built all these different teams over your career and you learned all these different things. You even put some of these things in your book. First of all, maybe we just talk about for you, what does good look like as far as engineering culture is concerned?
I think the question you ask, it's what is a good culture, right? Because it's a subjective. What's good for me may not be good for you. That may not be good for Michelle. So it's it varies. My definition of it is when creating a good culture is where people are really excited to wake up and to go to work.
Mm-hmm.
If it's Sunday night and you have a team that's actually really excited to actually what's ahead, what they're building, I think you're building something really special there.
Mm-hmm.
If people actually want to hang out and talk about other things, and as any other relationship, creating a good culture, it has to be a light environment. So people want to be there. No one wants to go to a meeting that is tense. No one wants to go to a place that is always heavy. So a good culture, you feel the air is light, the conversation. So that's for me what a good culture is. You have to enjoy the journey. You're not only thinking about where you're gonna get.
Mm-hmm.
And think about that. That actually applies to our personal lives. When you're talking about a trip,
right? When
you go to vacation, the journey is part of it. You have to enjoy it. That is building a good culture. That's no different for a workplace environment. So how do I do it? I try to make it light, make it fun. And I'm not saying that we need to tell jokes or play games out of we have to at the same time build a sustainable business.
Mm-hmm.
But it's sometimes investing a little bit of the time, sometimes of having everyone assuming the good intent of things on people, and having those conversations and having. I understand. As soon as we identify the problem, that's the first step to get that resolved. So, but that conversation don't need to be tense. Don't need to be negative. Complaining, I have you want to build a good culture? It's don't complain. If you have something that you don't like, provide the feedback and bring alternatives, and there's nothing that we cannot change. Absolutely nothing. I'm completely open to change anything. But complaining for the sake of complaining is the opposite of building a good culture.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm a big believer in the energy and all that kind of stuff. Negative energy, it's contagious the same way that the positive energy, it's contagious. So, and I say that in team meetings or let's stop complaining. Let's look at what can we learn and how can we do better.
Mm-hmm.
And then the culture will start to build. And then, yes, you have to put
That's
processes.
awesome.
You have to make you have to be identifying the roadblocks, removing the roadblocks, and making everyone accountable. People must be empowered. I hate the top down. It's just, it doesn't work. I want everyone to, and we work with very smart, talented people. People can solve problems. They should solve problems. And that's how you start. You put the guidelines. I like to say the dotted lines. As a leader, I put the dotted lines. Certain things, there's a big no. You want to change production code by hand? No. You want to actually to yell at someone or that's no. You cross those lines.
Right.
Those, but the dotted lines, and why I talk about dotted lines, not just lines, because I want to give the flexibility. You think we should push this line a little bit one way and another? Sure, let's talk about that. And I think all of those things, Bobby, that is building a good culture. because people will be thinking about solving those puzzles, and they will feel welcoming to actually present their ideas, to have they will take pride and ownership of what they're also contributing. You need to make people part of it. And then when you realize everyone is enjoying the ride, and that's what you want, that's a good culture.
That's really powerful. Very hard to do sometimes, but I really like your description of it. Yeah, especially the part about the lightness, so the bringing the feeling of like, almost like maybe this is going too far, but like almost like this is easy. We can do this. Anything can be done, I think a lot of engineering teams are not like that because maybe engineers are looking at the challenges too much or something like that. But I think any manager or any leader who can bring the light feeling of, this is fun, we can make this happen, staying positive, I think that's definitely a big part of the good leadership for sure.
Yeah. It requires lots of listening.
Yeah.
But that's okay.
That's actually another good point, which is the fact that it does require a lot of listening, actually, not telling people what to do or deciding everything for them. I think the listening part, I think a lot of leaders miss that part. I think you're absolutely right. Alberto, now we are in a weird place, maybe you could say, in the software industry with AI, the rise of all these LLMs and all the tools around them. We're seeing all these tools that are integrated into Visual Studio and all these different IDEs and the tools that are available to us just from OpenAI and all of this. I really wonder what will happen to the software industry in next 2, 3, 4 years. So let me give you one example. Like I talked to one guy, friend of mine. Actually, you probably know him. He's an architect. His name is Matt. Matt said, "Hey, look, Bobby, this is no different than when we invented Git. We were mostly all using CVS version control. Then we moved over to Git. And it's this amazing, concept, and it created a whole universe and stuff and helped us maximize our productivity. And that's what AI is going to be about." Then you have the other end of the spectrum. They're saying, you know what? AI is going to completely get rid of certain kinds of roles. And that's one end of the spectrum. What do you think about this? What's going to happen to developers, architects, software engineers next 2 to 3 years?
To a person that really knows how to use it, it will make a good use, put the nails in the right place perfectly. If I give a hammer to like someone that doesn't know how to use it, a very simple tool, it can get hurt. You can even kill yourself if you go extreme. It's really bad. I think AI is no different than another tool. You have to know how to use it. So if we look at 3, 4 years and say certain roles is going to be, is going to be replaced by AI. I think the job that is repetitive, the job that AI will replace those jobs. And probably already replacing. Think about, manual QA. Over the years, it came automation.
Right.
And then you start hiring automation engineers, you don't hire more manual QAs. Mm-hmm. But they still have manual QAs to today's day.
Yeah.
But it's less and less and less. So you can find the patterns where some jobs will be replaced. Will the developer be replaced because AI can generate code? I don't think so. I think engineers will still, but the repetitive, to build a website in early 2000s was really hard. To build a website now, it's it came WordPress and all those kind of stuff. It became a lot easier. I think AI is going to make it even easier to even people that don't have much coding skills. So I think certain jobs will adapt, some will be eliminated, but at the core of AI, it still requires, I think we will still require, AI, it has to benefit the human. Right? You don't have an AI that will not benefit, but we need to change, we need to adapt. But we've been adapting, I think we've been adapting pretty well in the past 20, 25 years. Some jobs, it's gone. I from the time that you have to pay, when you catch a bus, you have to pay for the person. That job doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
Like you just pay for like the driver now.
Right.
No one realized some jobs have been removed by automation, but new ones are created. You just like the skill set that we have to learn, and I'm not scared. I'm excited about the future.
Yeah. You have an optimistic.
The boring jobs is gonna go away.
Yeah, that's an optimistic view. I like it. I think maybe you're like you said. It's hard to predict the future. It's hard to figure out what is going to happen with precision. I kind of think my own perspective is like, I think the hammer analogy is pretty powerful. I will say that. It's a very good, you're a very good maker of analogies, but I think the AI, my own personal perspective is like, it's like the most powerful hammer anybody's ever seen in the existence of humanity. And that makes it like different for me. For me, it's like, I think it's going to totally turn upside down the software industry. I don't know what's going to happen exactly for every role. So you're absolutely right. Of course, first the repetitive roles will go away and stuff like that. But I was talking to this expert from MIT, AI expert. And I said to her, I was like, oh, so I guess AI is going to take out these bottom roles at the bottom, these individual contributor, repetitive roles and stuff. She's like, no, it's going to take out the people at the top. And I was like, why do you think that? And she said, well, it can make all kinds of decisions now that CTOs used to make before, or VPs of engineering used to make before. Is this all be made by the AI? And she's very advanced in her research into AI and all that type of stuff. But it's, for some reason, this feels different than social media, going to the cloud, when blockchain came out, all these, we both are similar age, we saw all these things happen. But this thing just feels like, wow, you can sit here and you can, with one person can do the job of like 10 people. And what will these Scrum teams look like if that's true? If that ratio is true, what happens to a typical Scrum team? Is it just one person with like an agent for QA and 5 agents for, development and another agent for product owner or something like that? So I'm not scared either, but I think I think that some engineers that I meet are underestimating how much it's going to change. And I even know some people who don't use it. Like, I use it every day. You use it every day. A lot of people I know use it every day, but there's some engineers who are like, no, I'm not using this. There's some leaders who are not using it, and they maybe they're afraid of it, or maybe they just don't like it for whatever reasons. But I think anybody who underestimates it is probably going to regret that at some level,
I think it's unavoidable. There's no way to avoid it. So either you're going to have to join sooner or later. It is in our, it's everywhere. Look, it's not only from work, it's everywhere. It's in our lives. And I think, again, it's hard to predict. I still think that, there are like some companies that are using AI to making decisions. I think many are regretting it. Many that are regretting it. It's not ready. It's not to, maybe one day. But right now, the pain is, it's lacking context. It's lacking, it's still very binary. It is not that a human. The human, like what a human brain can do is unbelievable and unpredictable many times. And that there's no logic, where AI will have the logic based on what they know. So how do you implement certain gut feeling or feelings or emotions, or like how do you do those things? Like AI will not be able to do that. AI will be logical.
Yeah. Well, here's
So
a perfect example. If you're running a platform with a lot of technical debt, let's say the platform's been around for 10 years, 15 years, something like that. AI today can't go in there, figure out what the technical debt is, and solve for it. It can't do that. Probably you can do it. I can do it. We can go in there. We can look at the code repos. We can figure out which of this code needs to be chucked out the door, which needs to stay, why it needs to, based on the use cases of the business side, all that. But yeah, AI is not going to help you fix your technical debt. For as an example, today, it's not going to help you do that. Maybe 1 year from now, maybe it can do something like that. Maybe you can point the AI agent at your platform and it'll solve all your technical debt problems, but not now.
yeah, I would tell you like one example that I've been challenging my engineers. Like we have code base as any other code base that's lacking testing, unit testing, UI testing. It's scary what it can do. Like you write like a hello world class in whatever language, and you say write a unit test for my hello world,
Yeah,
and it does.
it does it. Yeah,
Now the engineer needs to understand and see, okay, is this testing not testing well, like you, but things that would take maybe an engineer like an hour, maybe 2 hours,
yeah.
you can actually do now in a few minutes.
Minutes. Yeah,
So it definitely, this is real today, and but you still need the engineer to polishing, fixing a few things here and there.
mm-hmm.
It's not 100% at 100% of times, but it
Yeah,
does increase the productivity. So if people are not leveraging or using those things, somebody else is leveraging using those things.
yeah,
So if it's not you, it's somebody else. And if it's
yeah,
somebody else, your competitor is going to be moving faster than you. Your some other people is going to move in their career faster than you. So that's how I like to think. Like there's many boats on this fleet. So if it's
mm-hmm.
not you, it's somebody else. So
Mm-hmm.
I want to be on the winner boat. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why join sooner rather than later is my recommendation for sure.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you to make one more prediction around AI. So the other day there was a podcast where I think Sam Altman was talking about AGI. Then he was talking about maybe it happens in 2025, which is like incredibly fast. Do you think that is possible? Do you think 2025, like literally next year, we get AGI, or maybe like the I think his name is maybe Diego or something like that. He's the head of Claude. He's saying 26, 27. Do you think any of these timelines for AGI are realistic, or it's just marketing?
One of my favorite movies was Back to the Future. It was the
Yeah.
first movie that I watched on the theater. I remember my mom took me to watch that in 1985. I was
Okay.
just like a little boy. And the predictions, what would be on the years of like 2000, uh, flying cars and the flying board and like a lot of that, made us dream. A lot of that made us believe that the future would be like, put a small
Mhm.
pizza like in the microwave, and that is gonna actually in 2 seconds make that big. So the way that I like to see, I think there's a little bit of fiction on that, a little bit of marketing,
Mhm.
um, but there's some true or some desire to be true at least.
Yeah.
But I don't think, as far as like, more recent example, like Elon Musk said that he would have, what was that, like the self-driving cars like in
Yeah.
2018 or so, and we're still
Right.
actually trying to get that. Eventually we will, and we are not
Yeah.
too far, like from getting like we see already like many cities with testing and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. So why I'm saying all these other examples, I think this is another example that we will get there. We want to get there. We use the marketing to get there, and the excitement for people to start thinking about that. Now, is that realistic? It's hard to believe. I don't want to say that it's impossible,
Yeah.
but the timeline, it's aggressive at minimum.
Yeah. Alberto, I've got a little thing for you since you're a Back to the Future fan. You remember this?
Oh yeah, at the time.
This was my wife got me this because that's one of my favorite movies too. I watch it like all the time.
I was actually trying to watch with my daughter now. It's like you wanna watch a good movie.
Right.
This is a good movie because it's
Great
timeless.
story.
It's
Great
timeless.
story.
When I watch it, like if you invite me to watch this movie, I will watch it again. And I always pay attention to the details. And it was a great movie and ahead of its time back in the day, for sure.
Yeah. You remember that show that used to come on? I forget. Maybe it was like the Discovery Network or something like that. There was two guys who used to do all these experiments. I forgot the name of the show, but one might have been Adam something or another.
Mythbusters.
Mythbusters. Yeah.
Oh no. yeah. The one that actually it's better to run or walk on the rain. Which
right.
Like
exactly. Yeah, did a lot of good stuff. That guy has a company that makes replicas now or something like that, and they make this gigantic DeLorean Back to the Future car. It's like $500, but it's like perfectly done. Every single nuanced detail of it is exactly like the movie. It's like incredible. So I've been telling my wife for the longest time, I really want to get this and put it in our living room. And she's like, "No way in hell are you doing this." What a great movie.
It's. I watched everything about that. I watched like there was a really nice movie as well that talks about the history of DeLoreans. It's a really good movie that tells like how the DeLorean became. It's not related to the Back to the Future, but I want to know about the DeLorean. You know,
right?
There's a really good movie about the DeLorean as well. I forgot the name right now, but it's.
Interesting guy. Didn't they start his daughter? John DeLorean's daughter tried to bring the car back, right? They tried to do a modern version of it or something like that.
There's an electric version now of the DeLorean. There's a website you can see. I'm not sure if they start selling or not yet, but
all right, Alberto, got a few more questions here if you don't mind, and then we'll wrap up. One thing that we didn't touch on all that much was around productivity, and of course, you wrote this book that's on Amazon, and you talk a lot about not having any waste in an engineering team. The question I have around it is, what's your school of thought on measuring engineering productivity? Some CTOs I talk to, they're like, I never measure. It doesn't matter. It just matters. Are you shipping what the customer wants or not? Is it happening on time? That's the only thing that matters. Other CTOs, they get really into the weeds of all the metrics, and they look at velocity, quality, cost, deliverability, so many different things. What should an engineering team, your standard Scrum team, building a platform of some kind, what should they be measuring? And how many things should they be measuring? Should they measure everything? Some things? Like, what is your take on that?
I'm a big believer if anything that is measured can be improved. So if you're not measuring, I struggle to believe how do you know what the hell you're doing? And that's where the engineering brain comes. So like if it gets measured, it can get improved or validated that you're doing right.
Right.
So there's a saying that I say all the time to my teams for many years. Make the invisible visible. If you're doing visible work, I can't measure. We can't get better as a team. The shipping, the value, it's almost a consequence of how you operate.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you can actually be a high performance team delivering value if you don't make it invisible visible and then you can measure. So like I created this Carpaccio methodology. It's another metaphor that I compare software teams with a restaurant. A restaurant wants to be a sustainable business. A software company needs to be a sustainable business. There's a lot of work that happens in the kitchen and behind the scenes before you actually sit in a restaurant. Same thing happens in a software. There's a lot of valuable work that's not necessarily code, right? And valuable work in a restaurant, like sharpening the knife or cleaning the cooking station, it's super, super important. But you don't see that as a customer. But it's important. Stop doing that kind of work to see like what a mess that the restaurant. You don't want to go to a restaurant that they are not clean.
Right.
Same thing with a software team. So making that invisible work visible and recognizing that work needs to happen. It's part of like the methodology. It's part of how I lead my teams and I measure productivity. I'm not interested on quantity of code produced. We know that back in the day there was like, how do you measure productivity? Oh, lines of code produced. No, that's not what I'm talking about. Right. I'm talking about valuable work. And sharpening the knife is a good example. Bringing the food to the table is super important. You can be like analogous as CI/CD. It's okay to have that in a Saturday night if the restaurant is too busy and you cannot actually clean everything that night. That's that. But you take care of that later. In a software team, it's the same thing. You don't need to be paying the debt all the time. So as soon as people understand that measuring productivity will benefit everyone on the restaurant. So you're going to understand the bottlenecks. You're going to understand that I need more help on the table. I need more help in the kitchen. I need more help diversifying the kind of like where the energy is going. Because everything is, we live in a world that time is important. The time is important. It's like, we know that we have 24 hours in a day. That's it. No matter what you do, like no matter what in what part of the country on the planet you are, is 24 hours. So that's like it's a common denominator. You know, where do we invest the time? Where you put the energy and productivity? Yeah. If you make all this work visible, the invisible visible, and you can understand where the energy is going, you're gonna be able to have more customer visiting. They will enjoy more the experience. And what happens, Bob, if you rush too much in the kitchen? You're going to be serving things like, you're going to bring like plates, like mess, and then you're going to send that back to the kitchen. That generates an interrupt. That happens in the software team as well. So measuring how many times it comes back, why it came back, doing the retros, like doing measuring activities, it's super important. So that's what I talk about productivity. That's what the methodology does. And I think... I'm not interested to actually see how many PRs you have, how many commits you have. That's not the kind of productivity that I'm talking about. I'm talking about measuring the activities and how long each activity take, and categorizing those activities, you know, in a way that I can actually say we're investing too much time on interrupts. We invest too much time on sharpening the knives. We don't need to be sharpening the knives that much. And then I can make more educated decision, data-driven decision based on what's going on. That's what I call measuring the productivity.
That's awesome, Alberto. So good. Such a good analogy too. Can you give our listeners an example of a typical engineering team? What's this invisible work that so many of teams have? Nobody realizes it's happening. Certainly people outside of engineering have no idea that it's happening, and yet it's taking up so much of people and team time. What's an example, like one example of a very common invisible work?
Classic one would be, hey, Bobby, here's like, we need to make a change on this system. Maybe it might be a legacy system or not, but it's been a while that no one touched that area of the code. And we need to make a change there. Can you do it? So Bobby now gets that code, and Bob has no idea what to do with it. because we need to invest some time to investigate what is the intent and what the code is actually doing, so then you can see if that's possible or not. That's time. Bobby may spend time box that in half a day, or maybe 2 days. But I call that in my teams like, let's run a spike. A spike is an investigation. But you're not producing anything. You're literally trying to understand what's going on. That is a good example that typically becomes invisible work. And now, how much time do we invest with spikes in understanding stuff? We're not writing code. We're not sharpening the knife. We're not serving food. We're not producing anything. Well, not true. We are producing the knowledge to make the change. Might be like, a line of code, but it took you like 2 days to actually understand and test and see how things actually work, and trying to debug and trying to see logs, there's a bunch of stuff. That is a good example of, that doesn't make Bobby a very slow developer or make Bobby a less critical. In fact, probably Bobby did an amazing job actually doing that, understanding to make that surgical change. But if I'm just looking the amount of, or like the code, or like the code activity, many softwares out there, they measure code activity. I think it's a waste of time, because that is not necessarily like the value that's being delivered. So that's a good example. There's a bunch of like other examples other than
That's
this
a great
one.
example.
But this is a good example for now.
Yeah. That's so powerful, because in so many teams we measure all the wrong things, and you sit there, you roll out, all these metrics frameworks and stuff, and 1 year later it's all the same. Nothing has really changed. The way you're talking about it seems far more effective. You're measuring the activities. You're not measuring all these like typical engineering kind of KPIs and stuff that don't really get you any improvements, in what the team is doing. Because I think you can gather all the data, but then what are you going to do with it? You have a lot of companies out there that do metrics analysis and stuff like that, but like they never really tell you, okay, well, this is the lever you have to pull to improve this area or that area. They'll tell you some stuff about bottlenecks, but not how to fix anything. And then that comes through experience and through knowledge and through understanding how teams work. And so much of it, I'm sure, depends also on the context of what exactly are you building, and how is the operating model set up with product, and all these different types of things. So I urge everybody to check out your book. You've got a lot of really good analogies in there.
Yeah, about the Carpaccio methodology, there are like 2 articles as well. I can share like the links that they literally explain. There's even like one of the articles that explains how to implement that in your team. It's simple. It's more it's a lot simpler than people can imagine how to do this. You just need a common denominator, and like it's a process. It's a very simple process. One thing I would say, Bobby, about measuring productivity, it has to be done very, very carefully, because if you actually don't implement the methodology correctly or measuring productivity correctly, people will feel micromanaged. People will feel like it can go wrong very quickly. But if you do this right, and using the example and the metaphor of the restaurant, and like you're trying to understand how you're operating your business, people actually really love it, because in that example, Bobby will feel like very, very much appreciated that the work to understand the intent of that code in a legacy that no one actually knows, like the what's under the hood. It's actually valuable work. So make it invisible visible is really powerful.
Yeah, if you do it the right way, you empower your engineers. If you do it the wrong way, it becomes some kind of like penalization system, and it's not good. I've seen it go both ways. Alberto, what's next for you now? Obviously, you're running, as a CTO, you're running a team. You've written a book. What are you going to do next? What are the big projects going on for you? I know you also do talks across the country and so forth. anything that our listeners should know, any place that they can see you speaking, any upcoming events that you're doing that our listeners can tune into?
Definitely got like a quite big challenge right now at my current mission. Learning, we are FedRAMP compliant. So we sell for the government. So I'm learning a lot. There's a lot. I probably will write something once I actually can get this figured out. But a lot of energy there. Putting the team together, and some of like the practices that I described here, I'm implementing again. So always improving that. And most recently, I'm get to a point that I really feel I feel really good to giving it back. So I've been doing some volunteer jobs most recently. A couple of weeks ago, I was in Brazil giving training and a talk for 35,000. The reach was 35,000 low-income kids that wants to learn technology. So I started in public schools, like came from a very, very financially struggling, like that's where I started. And being able to go there and have the impact on those kids, it's priceless. So I've been doing some of that. So not sure if it's going to be able to follow that as I go there and I talk Portuguese, but I'm doing a couple and putting some energy. I would love to do here in the States as well. So if you know any opportunities where we can actually literally have an impact on society with like guiding kids and stuff, I'm always excited to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so that's cool. I've been thinking about doing some similar things in Technocratic, which is our community that this podcast is a part of. And so maybe something with that'd be really cool. Yeah, helping kids. That's a really admirable thing. And is there any, Alberto, is there any website or name of organization that people could look it up?
For these places that I'm doing
for
this
the Brazilian
kind of work. I will share the links, and I think we can probably put it there. But yeah, awesome. There was TV, media interviews. There's a bunch of stuff. Like it's very. We're talking about AI, right? Imagine like how the world is gonna be for this next generation.
That's unbelievable. Yeah.
So that's what I'm like. I said, oh my goodness, like. How do we make this next generation, like how do we guide them? It's
right.
It's I think that's a true challenge. And so I think anything that we or anyone can do and invest the time thinking about the next generation, I think it's very, very.
We should definitely talk about it some more. I think that'd be great.
Yeah.
All right. I think we're at the end of our time. It was a pleasure talking with you today, Alberto.
It was a pleasure talking to you as well. And thank you very much.
I always learn so much from listening to you, and I'm sure our listeners will have taken a lot from this discussion. I want to thank the listeners for tuning in, and I'll see you all next time on the Technocratic podcast. In the meantime, keep the sharks swimming.